when I first came into the business, I mean, obviously I wasn't, well, I shouldn't say obviously, but I didn't come in with 5, 6 contracts a month, right? So I had, one deal a month or, as we're growing. And from my perspective at that time, it was just kind of like, I don't need to pay somebody to pretty much upload the paperwork, right? So my mindset was completely different because I did not see or I didn't understand the value. And you said something so key, right? You help with all of the administrative tasks so that we can go out and do what is the best use of our time, which is actually selling and procuring new business. Hey there, besties. Welcome to episode number 70. And I'm really excited about this little idea that we had for the podcast. And that was to start bringing a theme or a series on who you need on your team. Because I know that when you are starting out, first of all, it can feel just oh so overwhelming. What lender to work with, and do you need a transaction coordinator, and what title company, and all of these different things that we have to consider that will actually end up being an extension of us and how we do business. And I wanted to start off by, first of all, saying, take a deep breath. You don't have to have it all figured out today, but I do want to start interviewing and talking to some of the people that are on my team. And I'm not talking my local real estate team, but literally all of the folks that help get the client to the closing table. And I thought, what better way to start than inviting my transaction coordinator, Kimberly Lewis. So, hey, Kimberly.
Hey, Rosemary, how are you?
I am doing good. How are you doing today?
Doing very well. Thanks for asking.
Yes, y'all. So Kimberly, although we have the best last name in the world, Lewis, we are actually not related. I've gotten that question a couple times when clients see your stuff on my see you send emails like, oh, are y'all related? I'm like, nope, not related.
Yeah, that happens on my end too.
Yes. But Kimberly is my transaction coordinator. So she deals with my crazy that you all don't necessarily have to deal with. You don't get to see that version of me. But Kim has been a godsend in the business. And quite honestly, having a transaction coordinator was something that I was I'm not going to say I was against it, but I didn't understand the immense amount of value that a transaction coordinator would provide. So Kimberly, why don't you just give them, some of our besties may not be familiar with what exactly a transaction coordinator does. Can you just let them know a little bit about your role?
Absolutely. Yeah. So basically what a transaction coordinator does on a daily basis is basically we take all the administrative work off of the plate of the agent. So essentially what happens is when one of my agents, Rosemary, sends me a contract and it's executed, I basically take the ball and I just run with it. I usually will send out intro emails to the clients, to the other side of the transaction, the lender, the title company, letting everybody know who I am and my role, and asking them to please correspond, keep me copied on all correspondence. And I basically just do all of the administrative back end stuff. So We get all of the documents signed, we put them into your back office. We talk to the lender, we talk to the title company, we set up the closing. We take basically all of that off of your plate so you guys can go out and sell. The only thing that we don't do is we don't negotiate. So that's pretty much it, is just basically, you guys hand us the contract, we take the ball and we run with it. So I typically don't bother my agents unless it's absolutely necessary. I have been doing this for quite a while, 20 years actually. So I kind of
know what you're doing.
yeah, I know how it works. So
Yes.
I try not to bother my agents unless I'm not getting responses from somebody that's, super important. And then, sometimes I'll ask you guys to step in and help out. But for the most part, I basically just run the transaction from beginning to the end. So yeah.
No, I love that. And I just want to share with you all just a mindset shift that I had to make, right? Because when I first came into the business, I mean, obviously I wasn't, well, I shouldn't say obviously, but I didn't come in with 5, 6 contracts a month, right? So I had, one deal a month or, as we're growing. And from my perspective at that time, it was just kind of like, I don't need to pay somebody to pretty much upload the paperwork, right? So my mindset was completely different because I did not see or I didn't understand the value. And you said something so key, right? You help with all of the administrative tasks so that we can go out and do what is the best use of our time, which is actually selling and procuring new business. So I just want to bring that up because I do think that, I even hear some agents, I actually have a good friend, I won't call her out, but she sells like 20 million a year and just got a transaction coordinator. And what I shared with her is like, girl, like for the investment, you're going to get so much of your time back because you all help so much, right? But I do know that a lot of agents struggle with giving away or feeling like they have to give away that ownership of the transaction. So can you speak to that for those people who may be feeling like, I can't have somebody else doing my stuff?
Yeah, I run into that quite a lot. Basically, it's, letting go of control, right? Like I personally myself, I have that issue as well. When I go on vacation, I struggle letting other people handle my stuff because you feel like nobody else in the world can handle it the way that you can, right? And basically, with agents that I've run into that kind of have that same issue of letting go of control of their stuff, at Empower where I work, we always copy the agent on absolutely everything that goes out. So they know exactly what's going on. They have access to our back office system. They can see all the tasks that are upcoming, tasks that have been completed. And usually with agents that are a little bit trepidatious about that, I tend to just kind of say, hey, let's try 1 or 2 transactions. If you're still not comfortable, you don't have to pay for them. Just, see how it works, see how it makes you feel. And I've never had an agent not come back. So it is difficult, but it is something that you can kind of get over with the right transaction coordinator that's willing to, really keep you in the loop of what's going on. So, and we do that a lot at Empower. We just make sure that you guys are constantly copied on. I have agents on the other side that'll send me stuff and they don't copy my agent on it. And I was just like, whoa, we're going to loop our agent back in because it's very important that y'all know what's going on. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And you alluded to one thing there that I wanted to point out. So Kimberly does not just work for the Rosemary Lewis Group. She works with a company called Empower, and it is a transaction coordinator company. And I'm going to be 100% honest to say, in the beginning, I was thinking, okay, I need a transaction coordinator. And my first kind of rodeo with trying it out was to take an agent that was newer and pretty much in my mind, I was training them right on how to TC my files. And I'm not going to say that they didn't do a good job because with the information and with the training that I provided to them, which is pretty much what I was doing, they did what I requested. But coming to Empower and having an actual company that understands transaction management has been night and day different for me. And one of the big things is that I found myself, even before I had a TC, just not being on top of all the dates. I am naturally not an analytical person. But that's not an excuse in real estate, right? Because all of these dates are tied to contingencies and, what needs to happen. And a lot of times, if we are not abreast on what's happening, or, you get to the point where you're managing 2 or 3 files, and now, you miss an email or you miss a date, that can really wreak havoc on the transaction and could put your client in a tough spot if you don't have that extra set of eyes and ears to help you stay on top of it. So from my perspective, hiring Kim and hiring Empower has just allowed me to become more proficient. I don't get to be hands off at all, but I do have that, like, oh, I look at my calendar invite because you send me a calendar invite and let me know that the financing contingency is today, right? So that's just my cue to have a conversation with my client or with the lender or something else, something that I may have overlooked if I didn't have this additional layer of support.
Yeah, I agree. For me, like, I don't think any agent should ever just be totally hands off. Obviously, at the end of the day, like, those are your clients. But we do like to try to take all of that stuff off of your plate for the most part. Obviously, there's things that you still have to be aware of. But not only do we set up the calendar invites, we also send out emails the day before those big deadlines come. And a lot of the times, if I don't hear or see anything coming through, I'll usually text my agent and be like, hey, options expiring at 5 o'clock. What are we doing? So I understand the gravity of missing some of those dates for your clients. And obviously we don't want that to happen. So we do the best that we can to make sure that you guys are on top of those dates and everybody's happy and moving forward to closing. So
Absolutely. So what would you say to the agent? And for those of you who don't know how it works, so with a transaction coordinator, what Kimberly stated is once you are fully executed, I copy Kimberly, I copy the title company, let them know all the parties that will be involved. And then from there, she starts doing her thing, right? Emailing the clients, letting them know about the dates, things of that nature. And I particularly love it because, all title companies are not created equal. They provide updates differently. So again, having a transaction coordinator just helps you, to me, it helps you look like a rock star, right? Like you are just not dropping the ball at all. Now, in terms of paying your transaction coordinator, I don't know if it's like this in every single state, but in the state of Texas, Kimberly is paid from closing, just like I am. So we are able to split her payment on the CDA. And, so essentially, if it doesn't close, neither one of us get paid. So and again, I've had situations where I thought, even though it's not a huge amount, it starts to add up. And then you think, oh, I can just put those papers in myself and save this few $100s, but it's way more than that. And like you said, it's really no risk of, you choose a company and then they're paid at closing. So we all have a vested interest in seeing the deal get to the finish line.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, I did think about that because we do have some agents that pay by credit card. But yeah, I mean, I don't ever just go, oh, well, because they're paying by credit card, I'm not going to do my best to get it to the closing table. But yes, that's correct. I mean, obviously, no matter how it's paid, I always make sure that, my agents are happy and their clients as well. So yeah.
So what would you say, I'm pretty sure we have some people whose wheels are spinning like, okay, maybe I do need to give this whole transaction coordinator thing a shot, but I don't even know where to get started or what questions I should ask when I'm interviewing a company or an individual. So what are some things that you would suggest our besties ask their potential transaction coordinator to see if it's going to be a good fit?
Sure. I would say probably number one, interviewing a transaction coordinator is probably how long have you been a transaction coordinator? Do you have experience in real estate? Because there are transaction coordinators out there that I've come across that just don't seem like they have a whole lot of experience. And that really can make the difference between a good transaction coordinator and one that's just doesn't really know what's going on. When you guys are hiring transaction coordinators to help you with your stuff, they should know what they're doing. They shouldn't be having to ask you questions like, what do I do now? Or where do I send this? That's, I know that I started out somewhere and I started out as a real estate receptionist and then kind of moved into the role of a transaction coordinator. So I had a little background, but I really do think experience matters a lot. And what's your response time? Like, what are you going to do if this scenario happens? Are you going to call me? Are you going to email me? What's your functioning and your structure of your company? Because I think that all of those things really matter, especially if you're kind of putting your trust into a person to take care of your business for you. And I think for me, if it was me, those are the top questions I would probably ask, because there's times when you're not going to be able to handhold somebody. So
yeah, they're going to have to take it.
That's not the role of the transaction coordinator. Transaction coordinator should know what they're doing, so they're able to really fully function from the beginning of the transaction all the way through the end, and know how to handle most situations that do occur. I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years and I still have situations that come up sometimes and I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Typically when that happens, I just call my agent and say, hey, what do we need to do here? So experience, I think, is top.
And something that you just said, I even think back to, being a newer agent, right? Where I was still, quite honestly, familiarizing myself with the structure of a transaction. So to have a trusted transaction coordinator would have been of such a benefit to me, just again, to make sure, because it seems like there's so many moving pieces when you're first getting started. And to have that extra layer and somebody who is knowledgeable about what should happen next, again, I feel like it just gives you a little bit of an edge against the people who don't. And I'll never forget, I remember, being on the expressway and needing to pull over to get an amendment executed at 4:58 p.m., and just by the skin of my teeth. Because, life or the day or the conversation. And there have been other times when I'm just like, okay, Kim, can you do me like, hey, we agreed to this. Can you send this, this, and this? And before like I'm getting it all out, you have it sent out for signatures. And that in itself, it saves not only time, but it saves stress and anxiety. And operating within the best use of our gifts. A lot of stuff that we can do, it doesn't mean that you should do it if you have an option to provide that leverage for your business.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I feel like real estate agents are skilled in, they're people. I don't know any other way to say it. Like they're really good with talking, and they're good with negotiating and stuff like that. Transaction coordinators, we're the ones that take care of the paperwork, because I know y'all don't like to do it. So.
Girl, let me tell you something. I would rather, I sent you a message the other day, like, so when are you gonna start putting in these listings? Like, because it could be the smallest, something that you can knock out is just gonna drag with me, because you're right. I'm not here for that. I need to be in front of people. Like, I want to shake hands and kiss babies.
Yeah.
I don't want to do the other stuff.
Yes, exactly. And that, it's funny because my husband's like, why don't you get your license? And I'm like, I don't want to. I don't want to be around people. I'm happy here in front of my computer, just helping everybody else. Like, that's just my personality, and I think that that's important because a lot of agents that I know that I work really well with, they're like, I do not want to do what you do. I don't know how you do it. And I'm like, well, it's easy for me.
No, I understand. And let me tell y'all a funny fact, right? So we've been working together. I don't know. I started with Empower over a year ago, and I don't remember when you took over, but it feels like it's been like 9 lives with the cat because of just these different transactions. But yeah, I've never met Kimberly in person. I don't even know what you look like. Gotta go and stalk you. But I work, I know some folks like that are just kind of like, hey, let me just go in my bubble and do my work. And then when I'm off and I'm done. And there's nothing wrong with that, because I think that was the danger. Now, I don't want to say danger, but that was the challenge with my first kind of idea. Like, okay, I'm just going to train a new agent. But guess what? That new agent don't want to be a transaction coordinator, just like I don't, They want to get out here and get business. So then I found myself in a situation where I wasn't hiring for the skill, I was hiring the person. And it just wasn't a good fit.
Yeah.
And
you touched on something there too. Also, I think it is also very important that when you do hire a transaction coordinator, that your personalities kind of click. I've definitely had agents where I've worked with them and I'm like, nope, I'm not working with this person anymore.
Yeah.
So, and those things happen because just if your personalities don't jive, it's not good for anybody. So
It's not. And that's something too. Okay. And I'm happy that you said that, because I feel like in one of my initial conversations with you, I was just like, look, I fly by the seat of my pants, right? So, sometimes it's a voice memo, because if I'm on a go and I just need to, get something out, I don't always have the capacity to whip out, to be emailing and doing different things. And then, just different things that I've been going through, I've been able to share with you, like, hey, I'm going to be, like, you might be hard to reach me, but I'll voice memo you. Or so we have to also own our junk. Does that make sense? Like, you can't expect your transaction coordinator to clean up your messes or read your mind. So we have to be honest with them about, okay, this is the best way for me to communicate. And if that isn't going to work for either party, let's just get it out in the open right now. And then we move on, so that you're not frustrated with me and I'm not frustrated with you.
Yeah, 100%. Not conversation, but what's the word that I'm looking for? Communication is key.
How we communicate. So here's just a random question that I have for you though. Like, how do you deal with, because you're right, us agents, we a ball of fire, baby. How do you deal with all these different personalities? Like, what do you drink at night?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's, like I said, it probably is the most difficult part of my job, is just dealing with all the many different personalities. I probably have about 65 agents on my roster. So it's hard, but once you get to know the person and you kind of like know how they work and stuff like that, like, that's why I really don't like taking on new agents, because it takes me like, like a half and 30 days to figure out, how they work and what they like and what they don't like and how they like to communicate. And, for me, that's probably the most difficult part of the job. But, you just have to figure out how people like to work. And you just kind of like, I know how you like to work, and then I know how this agent over here likes to work. It's just a game of trying to figure that out. And once you know them for do a couple transactions with them, it's okay. But it is probably the most difficult part of my job.
I can only imagine. Like, I couldn't deal with two of me. So
Oh, I think you're awesome. Trust me, I would take all of you for all of my agents. I think you're amazing, and I enjoy working with you so much. So
thank you. I appreciate that. But so you do bring up, okay, I know we're winding down our time, but I do, because you do have a different perspective, right, of how agents work. And I'm pretty sure you can get a cue into, how not only how they're building their business, but how they're connecting with their clients. So what are some characteristics that you have seen of agents that do it well, and some characteristics that are more undesirable? Because we gotta know our own junk, and you have a different perspective for us.
Well, the agent, like I kind of mentioned before, the agent that stays engaged with their clients and is not just kind of like, okay, Kimberly's got it, and then just walks away. Because I have agents like that, and I have noticed that they don't have as many repeat transactions with those people. And because I'm here to help you, but I'm not here to do your job.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I've noticed that agents that tend to just, like you said, something about, I'm still hands-on, and you're absolutely right. You still are hands-on. But agents that are like, okay, I've got the contract, I'm passing the ball to Kimberly, Kimberly's got it, and I'm not talking to my clients anymore. And then I never see them get repeat clients and transactions. But a lot of the agents that are, paying attention to what's going on, even just in conversations with me, not necessarily to their clients, but, I have agents where I'm calling them and I'm like, hey, I have this, what's going on? They're not answering my phone calls. They're not returning my text messages. And then I just look stupid, because I'm just sitting there like, I'm not sure. You know what I mean? I'm not going to send a document to your client if you haven't approved me sending it.
Right. Yeah.
things like that. And then, I think for an agent to be engaged with their clients is extremely important, and not just expecting somebody else to do their job for them. Agents that are, still talking to the title company and still talking to the lenders and things like that. I would just say engagement with their own clients is key.
I completely I agree with you. And look, I'm just thinking about some of our texts. You'll be like, hey, I didn't hear about that amendment. I'm like, oh girl, I sent it. Sometimes I forget to cue. I'm the problem. Look, I'm like Taylor Swift, it's me. I'm the problem, it's me. But it is important, right? And you also, this is a tip that I want to tell people too, is that in my buyer's consultation, or when I consult with sellers, I introduce Kimberly to them in those conversations, right? So even though she does not enter the transaction until we are under contract, I let them know who all the major players will be so that they don't feel passed off. And my conversation is, hey, I actually do have a listing coordinator. She just don't put stuff in Skyslope for me. But I'm like, hey, Erin's my listing coordinator. Kimberly is the transaction coordinator. And this is what they do, right? And I just pretty much say, hey, you take the baton and you make sure that we're dotting all our I's and crossing our T's. But I let them know, but I am still very much present. But make sure that, you are responding and you are looking out from emails from Kimberly, because she's going to be, just a really important part of the transaction. So I just bring that up because I think that sometimes agents get nervous. Like, I don't want my client to feel passed off. But if we set the expectation at the start of, hey, this is what you get, and I act like, we got the starting lineup. Like, when you work with me, you just don't work with me. You work with Kimberly. You work with this person. Like, we're all in it together to get you to the goal, and that goal is whatever their initial pain point was. So having those conversations up front, I think, help with the transition, but you definitely still have to be all the way involved.
100%. And also, something that I just thought of is that, if you have a transaction coordinator, you need to be very communicative with them as well, because I do have agents that are like, I'll send out an email and I'll be like, hey, here's the next steps moving towards closing. And then the agent texts me or sends me an email saying, oh, that contract fell out 3 days ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why are you not telling me this? Because we're a team, right? Like, and if we're not talking to each other, then we look stupid if we're just, sending out in the emails going, hey, congratulations on getting past your option period, and the contract fell out like 3 days ago.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's, obviously, if you have a transaction coordinator, you need to, even if they're not sitting right next to you, you need to still communicate with them and tell them what's going on. Like, hey, this contract fell out, or this contract is probably going to fall out, or what I mean?
Like, hey, it's shaky. Say your prayers tonight, Kim. Let's
yes.
let's get to the closing.
Yeah, 100%. And when agents tell me, hey, this contract may fall out, then I'm aware, I know not to send any further correspondence until I know what's going on. So yeah, I think that's pretty important, is just make sure you're talking to them like they're sitting right next to you, even though they're probably not. So yeah.
Well, I just want to say I appreciate you. I appreciate the team at Empower just for really helping us streamline our process. And this, how people say you got to have systems. This is definitely a system that, again, I could spend a whole lot of time managing the transactions, but to hire the right team has definitely been the best fit. And I'm really grateful for our partnership. And I just hope that we close millions and millions and tens and millions of dollars of real estate with each other every year, 20, 40, 50, 60 million. I don't want to sell 60 million, but
Absolutely. I'm there for that for sure.
Yes. Well, if anyone, tell us a little bit as we are closing out about your company, who you serve, and how they can, because there are more than, you have a full roster, but there are other agents and our transaction coordinators at Empower that are trained on the system just like you. So if someone's interested, how do they reach out and where do you serve?
So our company is Empower Transactions. You can log in or get more information at the website of empowertransactions.com. So there you can kind of see like reviews for each of the transaction coordinators. You can set up a meeting to talk with our president, and she will get you more information about anything, you can see all the pricing for our listing services, our contract to close, etc. And yeah, basically a good place to start. And you can kind of see the TCs that we have available. I myself am pretty full at the moment, but if Rosemary says you're great, then I'll let you come on board.
Now, is this only for Texas agents? Because we have besties everywhere.
This is not just for Texas. We have quite a few other states. Don't ask me what they are, but there's quite a few of them. You can see that on the website. It shows the states that we serve.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Well, thank you so much. And besties, again, in this new series, we're going to start just sharing like who you have on your team. So we're going to have conversations with inspectors and lender and, just different people in the industry that help us, again, get to the closing table and help our clients reach their goals. So I was really excited, Kim, that you kicked off this series with us. And I just can't wait to talk to you next week, besties. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you, Rosemary. Bye-bye.
Bye. If you enjoyed this episode and you have a real life bestie that you think it would resonate with, y'all, do me a favor. Go ahead and hit that share button because you know what? We are better together. Make sure you share the podcast, and I appreciate your reviews. I appreciate you giving me 5 stars more than you know. I'll talk to you next week.